Hi there, I'm Delara. My sister's fiancé walked out the night before their wedding after he found out I wasn't funding his business. I wasn't even her maid of honor. So I went to Maui. Tell me, if your own family expected you to stay silent and pay for everything, would you have walked away too? Drop your thoughts below. I really want to hear how you would have handled this. And if stories like this speak to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for more real-life drama that cuts deep. By the time the sun dipped below the skyline and the sky shifted into its lavender hush, I still hadn't moved from the couch. My laptop sat open beside me. Its screen dimmed, the cursor blinking like it was waiting for me to write something. Anything, but I didn't have the words. Not yet. Instead, I sat in the kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, more like a fragile, deliberate freeze, the kind you hold in your chest when you've just realized the people who raised you never really saw you. Not fully. I was supposed to review some brand copy for a new campaign my team was waiting on feedback before our Thursday rollout. But every time I tried to concentrate, my brain yanked me back to the number, $1 million. Not a hypothetical, not a future inheritance, a real, living trust for Soraya, a trust funded, established, maintained, not a single word to me, not even a courtesy mention in Dad's tax update, just a clean line, Soraya May Caldwell Trust. Active, tax-exempt under a state classification. It didn't just sting, it restructured something inside me. They hadn't asked me to keep quiet. They simply assumed I didn't need to know. And that was somehow worse. A long sigh escaped as I walked toward the kitchen, grabbed a glass, and filled it with tap water. It tasted flat, but I needed something to ground me. My phone buzzed across the counter. A text from my mother. Hope you got the invite. Let me know what you think of the design. I didn't even open the image. I already knew what it would be. Some overproduced cream and gold cardstock nonsense. With embossed letters and zero soul. My sister's taste was all about curated aesthetics. Feeling optional, and yet somehow, she always managed to sell herself as the emotionally attuned one. I tapped the phone screen off and leaned against the fridge. In the years since graduating college, I had covered Soraya's missed rent payments. Let her crash at my place during breakups. Fixed her credit after her boyfriend tanked it. And even more ridiculous, co-signed a car loan I ended up paying off when she ghosted on the final year. And now she had a trust fund. And I had a forwarded email. I walked back to the living room, took a seat on the edge of the couch, and finally clicked into her Instagram post. There it was, her, grinning like the damn poster girl for a Hallmark movie. Hand extended, ring front and center, a dream beginning. Thanks, Dad, for believing in our future. Believing in our future. I let out a quiet laugh. Not the kind you make when something's funny. The kind that sounds more like a breath giving up on itself. I never got a, thanks for covering my last 3 therapy sessions. Delara, never a, thanks for holding me while I cried after Rowan's 3rd disappearance act. But Dad gets public praise for wiring money. I scrolled down. Comments flowed in like syrup. Sticky and sweet. Serena Rose, stunning. Your dad is goals. Haley Howell, OMG. Soraya, you're glowing. This is gonna be so perfect. It was always perfect, at least on the outside. I dropped the phone on the couch and stared out the window. This wasn't about money, not really. It was about being invisible. And not in some dramatic, middle child overlooked way. This was surgical, calculated. They built an entire future for her and left me off the blueprint. I opened my laptop again and clicked into the shared vacation home folder. Tax documents, utility receipts, ownership agreements. My name sat on every one of them. Soraya's? Not once. Yet it was me they called every time the plumbing backed up or the lawn needed replacing. I was the silent shareholder. The behind-the-scenes sponsor of their pretty little beach escape. No more. I pulled up a new document and typed the title in bold. Asterisk. Exit strategy. Caldwell Family Vacation Property. Asterisk. A knock sounded at my door. My heartbeat jerked. It was late for visitors. Cautiously, I stood, walked to the peephole, and relaxed a bit. It was a courier. I opened the door, signed, and took the thick envelope. Gold trim, wax seal, my name calligraphed in deep navy ink. Of course, the wedding invitation. I held it in my hand for a moment before flipping it open on the dining table. Everything was as expected. Ornate font, muted florals, 2 smiling faces embossed at the top. But as I searched the contents, guest list card, RSVP form, link to the wedding website, I noticed what was missing. For the first time in weeks, I felt clear. I didn't know where I'd go yet. But I knew exactly where I wouldn't be. I'd packed light, just one suitcase and a carry-on. It wasn't a getaway that required much. I wasn't running from anyone. I was just detaching. Quietly, deliberately. I turned my phone to airplane mode before we even reached the gate. The world back home could wait, the family threads. The guilt-laced emojis. The passive-aggressive, just checking in, texts. They could all pile up in silence. By the time my flight to Maui touched down, the warm, humid air wrapped around me like a bomb. I took a long breath as I stepped off the plane, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, complete autonomy. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. No justifications, no updates. While waiting for my suitcase, I opened my email to scan for anything urgent from work. Instead, 2 new messages caught my eye. Both from my father. The subject line on the first read, "Maintenance bill due, Port Aransas property." The second one, forwarded by Malin, was even more succinct. "Delara, can you handle this quarter while Sir Raya focuses on wedding stuff?" No salutation, no pleasantries, just assumption. Assumption that I'd always pick up the slack. Assumption that my life was so put together, so financially stable, that I had an endless reserve of both time and money to give away. I let out a breath. Slow and sharp. Was this supposed to be normal? That my contributions were expected without even the courtesy of a please? That while one daughter floated around trying on dresses and finalizing florals, the other was expected to foot the bills for the house that held the same name. But none of her piece? I sat back in the airport lounge and scrolled up to the thread. 5 years of receipts. 5 years of utility payments. Home repairs and tax records. Each one filed and paid for by me. Soraya's name never once appeared. Not even once. I remembered the day we signed the deed. I covered 60% of the down payment. Dad had told me, "It'll even out, honey. Just give her time. Give her time." That was the refrain, wasn't it? Give her time to grow up. To stop overspending. To hold down a job for longer than 2 months. To pay me back. But that time never came. She threw parties in that house. Left dirty dishes and stained couches. Once she handed the plumber my number because he handles all the bills. He as in me. And still I paid. Because somewhere deep in my spine, I'd been taught that family meant absorbing imbalance. That if you were the strong one, you gave. No questions asked. The memories trickled in. Harsh and fast. The time I covered her rent and told the landlord to say it came from her. The month I let her live in my guest room while she recovered from a breakup with a man she swore she'd marry. I'd even fixed her credit score secretly just so she could qualify for a lease. And every time I brought it up, every time I even hinted at the unevenness, I was met with the same deflection. She's going through a lot. She's just wired differently. She's delicate. No one ever stopped to ask what I was going through. I set down my tablet and took a long sip of water from the bottle in my bag. The hotel car service had already texted their ETA. I had about 20 minutes. Enough time to make a decision. I reopened the message from Dad. My fingers hovered over the reply icon for a moment before I started typing. "Hi Dad. I won't be contributing to the house any longer. Delara." I read it 3 times. No explanations. No justification. Just facts. Then I hit send. The world didn't collapse. No lightning strike. No guilt burst through my chest. Just stillness. I opened a new tab. Vacation options filled the screen. Spa packages. Beachfront suites. Solo excursions. I clicked through reviews and photos with the kind of clarity that had long eluded me. This wasn't a rebellion. It was a reckoning. Asterisk. I was done bankrolling silence. Done pretending everything was fine just because it looked that way on Instagram. Later that night, back in the hotel room, I stared at the soft lighting above the bed and let the quiet stretch. I checked my PTO balance at work. I had enough days. More than enough. The next morning I booked the flight extension. Not for an extra adventure. For space. For oxygen. For the version of me that didn't have to keep paying for other people's stories to look better than they lived. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when I met Samira at our usual spot off South Congress. This sunny little cafe with overpriced lattes and excellent sweet potato hash. The type of place where the playlist always had too much ukulele and the server greeted you like you just stepped off a yoga retreat. I let him take the bags and climbed into the air-conditioned SUV. It was stocked with chilled towels and glass bottles of sparkling water. The leather seats smelled new. Outside the window, swaying palms blurred past as we cruised the coastal road toward the resort. I rolled the window down slightly, letting the ocean air touch my skin. 20 minutes later, I was handed a cold glass of champagne and escorted to my suite. Ocean view. Top floor. With a private balcony. I stood there, drink in hand, and took in the horizon. Then I posted again. Asterisk, uninvited. But not undone, asterisk. It didn't take long. My inbox lit up almost instantly. DMs from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousin Mark. Is it true you're not coming to the wedding? Lily Mendez. OMG. Soraya's freaking out. Then came the group texts. Torin, did you just leave? Aunt Brianna. Malin says you should call her. She's worried. I didn't respond. Instead, I kicked off my shoes, changed into a cotton wrap dress, and walked barefoot onto the balcony. The sky was shifting into late afternoon now. A soft gold light washing over the waves. The phone rang. I didn't need to check the screen. I answered anyway. Malin's voice was breezy at first. Too breezy. Well, someone decided to go rogue. I said nothing. She continued, light but pointed. Delara, honey, you always take things too personally. You know how Soraya is. She's sensitive. She didn't mean to exclude you. I leaned back in the chair, watching a boat cut across the water in the distance. She just wanted to keep the vibe light. Malin added, this isn't the time for a tantrum. A pause. I spoke slowly. I'm not having a tantrum. I'm having boundaries, asterisk. The air on the line changed. Heavier now. She's your sister, she said quietly. She's stressed. We need to support her. My voice didn't rise. I was treated like a guest. So I left like one. For a moment, the only sound was the ocean breeze through my balcony doors. Don't do this, Malin whispered. You'll regret it. I don't think I will, I said, and ended the call. I muted the group chat, turned off notifications, but Harold didn't give up so easily. He called 3 times. I let them all go to voicemail. Then a text came through from him. This is not the time to be selfish. We need you here. I read it, then typed back. Asterisk. No is a complete sentence. Asterisk. I blocked his number. Then Malin's. I stood at the edge of the balcony, letting the breeze move through my hair. Out there, in that endless water, there was no performance, no roles to play, no weight to carry that wasn't mine. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. The crashing waves outside my window woke me before my alarm did. I sat up slowly, the light from the rising sun cutting golden stripes across the bedspread. The air smelled faintly of hibiscus and salt. For the first time in years, I didn't have to be anywhere, didn't owe anyone an answer, a call back, or an apology for breathing too loudly. I brewed a small pot of coffee, walked barefoot to the balcony, and settled into the lounge chair with my phone. 10 notifications. Most were from the family thread. Malin, I know you're upset, but don't do anything drastic. Harold, we're still figuring things out. Let's talk before you make a mess we all have to clean up. And still nothing from Soraya. Not a word, no call, not even a text with her trademark emoji-laced sarcasm. I took a slow sip of coffee. Then I opened my laptop. I already had the document bookmarked, the shared deed to the Port Aransas vacation home. There it was, my name, her name, the legal strings tying us together. Even when everything else between us had come untied. I clicked, intent to sell, typed in my information, reviewed it twice, and then I hit submit. Done. 15 minutes later, my inbox dinged. Subject. Confirmation. Notice of intent to sell shared property. Recipients. Harold Caldwell, Malin Caldwell, Julia Marks, family attorney. The body of the email was short and cold. Asterisk, as of today. I am initiating the sale of my ownership share in the Port Aransas property. Please direct all future communication through our legal representative. Delara, asterisk. That was it. My hands didn't shake. I didn't hesitate. My cursor didn't hover over the send button like it used to when I'd write long, apologetic messages for simply having a boundary. Seconds later, my phone started to ring. Harold. Decline. Then Malin. Decline. Then a group call from the two of them. I watched the screen vibrate for a full 30 seconds and let it pass like a storm I decided not to stand in. Instead, I got dressed, slipped into sandals, and stepped out into the Maui sun. The resort's private beach stretched long and empty in the early morning hours. I walked slowly along the shoreline, letting the water lap at my ankles. The first text came in just as I reached the edge of the rocky bluff. How could you humiliate me like this? Asterisk. I stared at the bubble. The nerve of it, the center of the universe, attitude dripping off every word. I didn't respond. I just closed the app. And for the first time since this mess started, I felt untouched. Let them scream into the void. I had nothing left to give but truth. And that wasn't a humiliation. It was a clean break. I was sipping a mango smoothie by the infinity pool when my phone started vibrating off the lounge chair. 17 missed calls. The names on the screen felt like a bingo card of family dysfunction. Zamira. Torin. Cousin Bria. Malin again. Harold. Even Rowan's sister, whom I'd never spoken to directly. Then came the texts. Torin. Rowan walked out. Left the rehearsal dinner and never came back. Zamira. Soraya's unreachable. Malin's hysterical. Grandma Amar is threatening to call a priest. I blinked at the screen. Then set it face down beside me. The sun was perfect. The breeze just right. A soft jazz cover of Fleetwood Mac played in the background. Across Instagram, the chaos began to unfold like a slow-motion car crash. People were posting selfies in formal wear with captions like, "Weddings bring out the real in people." Someone tagged the venue's account with, "Please refund the champagne." I didn't refresh again. Instead, I rolled over, ordered another drink, and let the warm air blanket me in peace. It was Zamira who finally called with the full story. "He left," she said, breathless. Rowan left, in the middle of his speech at the rehearsal dinner. He said he couldn't do it. That Soraya had lied to him about finances. I sat up straighter, pushing my sunglasses onto my head. "What do you mean, lied?" He thought she had savings. That she had a trust of her own. Turns out, she was telling him you were going to fund the next phase of his business after the wedding. I froze. His business? Zamira groaned. Tech startup. Something she told him you were gonna be the angel investor as a surprise gift. He found out today you were on vacation and already pulled out of everything, house, finances, all of it. I leaned back, remembering a conversation with Rowan at a family dinner months ago. It had seemed odd then, but now felt like a puzzle clicking into place. "You ever think about investing in something bigger?" he'd asked that night. I'd laughed it off, said I preferred vacations to ventures. Apparently that was the wrong answer for him. And now he was gone. Later that afternoon, Torin forwarded me a voice memo from Amara. "Grandma," recorded from the aftermath at the venue. In the background, you could hear shouting. Amara's voice cut through like a judge's gavel. "You created a lie and called it love." Then Brianna's voice, meek and cracking. "We were just helping her stay afloat." Amara, several tens of thousands over the years isn't helping. It's hiding. You buried her independency and called it support. Apparently Brianna and Ildan had been secretly funneling money to Soraya for years. Just enough to keep the illusion going. Designer clothes, trips, the ring upgrade, none of it was truly hers. And now the rug had been pulled in front of everyone. Malin, true to form, tried redirecting the explosion. According to Zamira, she'd cornered Torin after the collapse and hissed. This wouldn't have happened if Delara had just helped. I could practically hear her voice, coated in frustration and sugar. But I didn't take the bait. I didn't have to take the bait. Instead I typed one sentence to Zamira. Asterisk. They didn't invite me to save it. They don't get to expect me to fix it. Asterisk. By sunset, I posted a new photo, just the horizon. The soft blues melting into orange as the sun dipped low over the ocean. The caption, asterisk. Self-respect doesn't RSVP to dysfunction. Asterisk. Zamira replied with a heart. So did 3 cousins who'd stayed silent all week. Then another message from Zamira. They're scrambling. But they'll survive. I stared at her words and I finally believed it. They would survive. And maybe, for the first time in a long time, I would too. I turned off my phone, leaned back in my chair, and ordered another drink. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away. It's choosing not to return just because people are uncomfortable with your boundaries. Asterisk. This story isn't just about a ruined wedding. It's about finally realizing that peace doesn't come from fixing others. It comes from protecting yourself. What about you? Have you ever had to choose peace over family expectations? I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And if this hit close to home, don't forget to subscribe. There's more where this came from. The morning after the recording went public, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. But this time the messages weren't venom. They were velvet-wrapped apologies, hesitant check-ins, quiet acknowledgements. The same people who'd ghosted or guilt-tripped me just days ago were now crawling back. Their words wrapped in regret and clumsy sympathy. I didn't know the full story. That recording, wow, you didn't deserve that. I didn't respond, not out of spite, but because for once I didn't need their validation. The truth had already done its job. It was a strange kind of peace. Heavy but clarifying. I arrived early at the salon, needing the familiar rhythm of work to steady myself. The scent of acetone and jasmine tea was oddly grounding. I moved through the opening routine in silence. Turning on lights, checking appointment logs, wiping down the front desk. My employees trickled in with uncertain smiles. But no one said a word about the posts. Their support lived in the way they kept the music upbeat. The way they shielded me from nosy clients. The way they offered to cover an extra shift without asking why. By mid-afternoon, the group chat I used to be part of, my family's sacred digital living room, was in flames. Screenshots poured in from Zamira. Kale had commented publicly under the post, "So this is what you were hiding? You trashed your sister to look good for what?" Minutes later, a friend of his reposted the clip, tagging Soraya. She tried to clean it up, deleted stories. Vague apologies. Then a melodramatic selfie captioned, "No one sees the pain behind the mask." But the mask had already shattered. By the evening, the university had responded to the email I'd sent the week before, confirming they'd flagged the tuition request and rejected the extension. And then came the message from Soraya, just 2 words. "You win, asterisk." I stared at it for a long moment, then locked my phone and set it down. That night I cooked a slow dinner, pan-seared salmon, roasted asparagus, lemon rice. I plated it carefully, lit a candle, and let the quiet wrap around me like a second skin. There was no music, no TV, just the sound of a woman finally claiming her own evening. The next morning Malin called. I let it ring once, twice, then I picked up. "We need to talk this out like family," she said. Her tone was clipped, wounded, layered with disappointment dressed as dignity. "I'm not interested in talking," I replied evenly. "I'm interested in healing, and that doesn't require your permission. You can't just shut us out." "I can." I did. I ended the call before she could finish whatever final guilt trip she had tucked in her throat. Later that day I opened Instagram. My fingers hovered for a second. Then I posted, asterisk, "Helping someone and enabling them are not the same thing. I learned that the hard way. But I've learned it now, asterisk." No hashtags, no tags, no comments turned on. I didn't need the noise. That same afternoon, I left the family group chat. No dramatic exit, no parting words, just left the conversation. It felt more powerful than any argument I'd ever had with them. By Friday I was sitting in my office, reviewing blueprints for the new salon location, a tiny spot in Oceanside. Closer to the water, more foot traffic, more freedom, something that was mine and no one else's. The walls were still unpainted, and the ceilings needed work. But I saw the vision clearly. Like I'd finally scrubbed the fog off a mirror that had distorted me for far too long. I poured myself a mug of coffee, took a deep breath, and let the silence settle. Not the heavy kind, not the kind that made you feel invisible. This was silence with intention. I looked out the window, sunlight bouncing off passing cars. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation for the woman I had become. She lost more than my money. She lost access to the version of me that stayed silent, asterisk. The floor still smelled like fresh varnish, and the white walls of my second location glowed under the soft morning sun. I walked slowly through the open space, fingers grazing the edge of a new reception counter. There were no framed photos on the walls yet, no voices echoing through the rooms, but possibility hummed in the air like music only I could hear. The chairs had arrived yesterday. The water heater was finally fixed. The big mirror, my favorite, was still leaning against the back wall, waiting to be mounted. I paused in the center of the space, took a deep breath, and closed my eyes for a moment. This was mine, built not on borrowed money or quiet resentment, but on choice, on clarity. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. I pulled it out, expecting maybe a contractor or a delivery. Instead it was Malin. "Delara, your grandmother would be proud of you. We miss you. Please come for dinner." No emojis, no guilt-ridden paragraphs, just a single line dressed as kindness. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering above the reply button. For a moment, I felt that familiar tug of duty, of family, of second chances, but I locked the phone instead. That small action felt like closing a chapter without slamming the book. Back when we were little, Soraya and I used to play pretend salon in the garage. She'd sit in a plastic lawn chair while I wrapped her hair in mismatched scarves and rubbed lotion on her hands with too much pressure. We used my mom's old lipstick as pretend polish and laughed until our stomachs hurt. I used to think that meant we'd grow up to run a business together one day. I used to believe that shared memories guaranteed shared futures. But the truth is, we were just kids pretending. We grew up and became strangers wearing the same last name. Maybe we were never meant to grow into the same world. And maybe that's okay. The opening event was modest, just close friends, loyal clients, and a few curious new neighbors. Samira showed up early, carrying a bouquet of lavender and a box of pastries from the bakery we used to visit after school. "You look lighter," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "Like you finally exhaled." "I think I did." She helped me tie the ribbon across the entrance. It wasn't glossy red or theatrically wide, just a satin strip in deep emerald green, the same shade I painted the front door. As we cut the ribbon together, applause broke out, not loud or staged, just warm, sincere. People clapped because they wanted to, not because they were told to. Kale walked by later in the afternoon. He didn't stop, didn't speak, but he looked me in the eye and nodded. A gesture that said, "I get it now." That was enough. Somewhere in the corner of my mind, I imagined Soraya sitting alone, scrolling through posts, trying to rewrite the story again. Maybe she still believed I was the villain. Maybe Malin still saw herself as the peacemaker in a war she silently fueled. But it didn't matter anymore. Forgiveness and reunion aren't the same thing. I'd already forgiven myself for waiting too long, for giving too much, for not speaking sooner. That was the kind of grace I could offer freely. The sky dimmed into soft pinks and blues as the event wrapped up. I stood in the doorway of my new shop, watching people linger outside, chatting, laughing, admiring the space I had created. There was no grand announcement, no fireworks, no viral video, just a woman finally standing in her truth. They called it silence. I called it freedom. And if there's one thing this story taught me, it's this. Silence doesn't make you the bigger person when it costs you your dignity. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is to walk away. Not in anger, but in clarity. So let me ask you, have you ever been the one holding the family together until you realized they were only holding you back? If that hit close to home, you're not alone. I'd love to hear your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more true life stories like this one. Your voice matters here, just like mine finally did.